towards Scotland. And Per and Richard are inside the capsule. There have been reports on CNN that they're parachuted and whatnot, but it's not true.
They have relayed word to us that both of the pilots are in the capsule.
It was supposed to be the first ever transatlantic fight in a hot air balloon, and it almost made it.
They did parachute.
I found myself in the biggest balloon ever built, all alone. My fellow balloonists had jumped.
Networks have been saying that, you know, one's missing.
I really thought that we'd lost him. I never saw my life flash before my eyes. It was just one of extraordinary loneliness, extraordinary sadness. I'd had an extraordinary life, and it looked like this was the last 2 or 3 minutes of it. I wrote a note to the kids, telling them how much I loved them, and then I prepared to jump.
There's a body in the water. A body in the water.
One day I'm in Puerto Rico. I'm trying to get to the British Virgin Islands. I was 28 years old. I have a beautiful lady waiting for me that night. At 6 p.m. and American Airlines decide to cancel the flight. So I went to the back of the airport and I managed to hire a plane, borrow a blackboard, wrote just as a joke, Virgin Airlines, one way to the Virgin Islands, $39. I went around all the people in the airport and somehow filled my first plane. And when I got to the British Virgin Islands, a man said, sharpen up the service a bit and you could be in the airline business. The next day I rang up Boeing and asked if they had any second-hand 747s for sale. They asked what company I ran. I said, a company called Virgin. We have the Sex Pistols, we have the Rolling Stones. And they said they'd send a salesman, but they did say that with a name like Virgin, they just hoped the airline would go the whole way. It was the hardest 4 months of my life. I mean, we had to start an airline from scratch in 4 months in order to get the revenue in to help fund the bills.
I was constantly seeking ways of promoting the airline. I was absolutely passionate. We had the best airline in the world, but frustrated as hell because I had the marketing budgets of 1% of everyone else. The only thing I could do was out-publicise them, and that meant rethinking the way things had done before.
I knew that I just had to use myself to get Virgin on the map, get the brand out there, and to get us on the front pages rather than, you know, a little anecdote on the back pages.
Bad weather at sea was at least partly responsible for a failed attempt at the fastest ever sea crossing of the Atlantic. A British millionaire was behind the effort, and as ABC's Mike Lee reports, it almost worked.
It had all begun with high hopes Monday as the Virgin Atlantic Challenger left New York Harbor. Her owner, the aviation and record industry millionaire maverick Richard Branson, was determined to regain for Britain the coveted Blue Ribbon Trophy. Richard Branson's made a career out of breaking tradition. He has his own record company. He runs a one-airplane airline and has a flair for self-promotion. Only 2 hours away from setting a new transatlantic record, there was a distress signal, and then this. The crew took to life rafts, were rescued by a cargo ship, and then airlifted to a British island. Branson and his crew are tonight safe and sound, but determined to try again.
Well, I would never have gone anywhere near another motorboat if we had got the record.
But he didn't this time, and the Blue Ribbon record still belongs to America and to the tradition of the big ship.
I was thinking about the transatlantic concept from the very early days of ballooning, probably from the late 70s. The Atlantic has always been the battleground for new technology, being an airplane, being airships, or being the Blue Ribbon. My relationship with Virgin started with the balloon with the 747 intersecting the envelope. I signed it, and I tried the various airliners, and they weren't really interested. But I saw Virgin was very much more aggressive on the PR side. So I sent it to Virgin, and they said, yes, I love it.
I was working for Thunder and Colt. Lindstrand was the star. It was his business, and he drove everything that happened there. Charismatic person, made his own decisions, listened to very few people, and then ignored them afterwards.
Per was an amazing engineer. He absolutely knew his hot air balloon technology. He loved to try doing new things and was always trying to push the envelope that little bit further. We'd had lots of visits to Per Lindstrand's factory, and one day we'd gone back for tea, as you do, and I just mentioned in conversation, what's the biggest balloon you've ever built?
At that time, I had all the drawings of the Atlantic crossing on my desk. They asked what it was, and I said it's a plan I have to cross the Atlantic in a hot air balloon.
You can hear the pennies dropping, click, click. Could it be red? Yes, of course it could. With a white logo on? Yes, definitely.
Chris said, that would be just what Richard would love to do.
And I wrote down all the reasons why we shouldn't do it. We might close the airline, we could lose our jobs, we might kill Richard. And at the end of it, that list was quite short, the list of all the reasons to do it. The adventure, the challenge, yes, the publicity, all the things that came along with it. It just seemed to be too big a list not to do it.
Chris said, well, let's wait and see if Richard's boat come home this time. If it does, I'm sure you get a phone call.
Challenger, the Bishop Rock Lighthouse. Congratulations.
Somehow the British public like an underdog. They don't necessarily like a smart ass who's always successful first time. I don't think I was aware of the possibility of doing the balloon adventure until almost days after we successfully brought the blue ribbon back to the UK. And I think at that stage we were exhilarated, on a high, excited. So when Chris and Per came to my boat, maybe I was already looking for a new adventure. I was certainly nervous. I remember asking him whether he had any family, whether he had children.
That was the only thing he asked about my personality at the time. But Richard has his ability to instantly take a liking or disliking to something. Within 45 minutes, he said, yes, let's go.
Richard's words were, fucking hell, let's do it.
Fuck it, I've never flown a balloon before. I've got some work to do.
To fly across the Atlantic with one pilot with the risk of 3-4 days in the air is completely mad.
Per obviously was the experienced balloonist, so the first thing I had to do was to learn to fly a balloon.
What time is it now?
9:10.
Do you think we'll be away by 10? That's good.
I think we'll be inflated by 10.
And
We'll wait a little
you
later.
get the big balloon up today?
Yeah, we should be.
I knew Per Lindstrand, and it was Per Lindstrand that asked me to teach Richard Branson how to fly a balloon. I certainly wasn't a very good instructor. I knew how to fly balloons, but instructing is an art, and I hadn't really perfected it. It was a lot of fun.
Remember, it's going to be a lot lighter, because I won't be in it.
It certainly is. See you later. Bye.
Richard, he was a clever guy. He quickly understood what was needed. But he is Richard Branson, and he's promoting Virgin Airlines. He'd injected a serious amount of money in this, with lots of noughts on the end.
The road's that way, Richard. Don't go too far.
He wanted to look good, and he very much wanted to be a co-pilot.
I saw this as an incredible personal challenge and threw myself 100% into doing it. It's just wonderful to be able to get away from it all, to be powered only by where the wind wants to take you. That's one of the best days of my life.
Richard, with the greatest respect, had nowhere near the experience to be a useful co-pilot.
Now, Rick! Pull the rips entirely. Good! Pull the rips!
Well, I should have had a lot longer to teach him.
Following many months of planning, designing, and preparing for this adventure, the Virgin Transatlantic Balloon Challenge is ultimately in the hands of the pilots. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the two crew members, Per Lindstrand and Richard Branson.
As we walked into the press conference, I felt this is my dream. My dream to fly the most complex balloon system in the world. And here we are, in front of the world's press.
One of the most perilous times is actually inflating the balloon. I mean, inflating something 3/4 the size of Wembley football pitch, or bigger than the Albert Hall, is going to need absolutely perfect conditions. I mean, altitude attempts in the past have often come to grief just in the inflation process.
It was a project that nobody outside the factory thought would succeed. They were going to take off in this balloon and they were going to go up to 25,000, 30,000 feet. They were going to get into the core of the jet stream, and everybody thought that this was an impossibility.
There was a whole new world to adventure in. No one ever been in a sustained flight in a jet stream before. The jet stream is like a wind currents that go typically between 30 to 35,000 feet. It's the greatest danger is when you go into the jet, that on the top of the balloon you have 120 knots and the bottom you have 0 knots, and you can actually tear the balloon to pieces.
And this was one of the occasions that he took absolutely no advice. He said, no, this is going to work. We can build a balloon this size, probably 5 times as large as any balloon that had ever been built before. We're going to use insulation technology inside the balloon to retain heat.
The Virgin Atlantic flyer will fly so high, the gondola will be pressurized, just like a jumbo jet.
I think that most people would have said that the probability of killing themselves on this was somewhere around about 20%. And I would have thought it was probably a little bit larger than that.
If you have a catastrophic failure at 35,000 feet, the only way you're going to be able to survive is to skydive from 35,000 feet. Because if you opened the parachute at that height, with the very thin air, the parachute would rip off. So we had to learn to skydive to make sure that we could get down to 8,000 feet before opening the parachute. As the plane climbed, I must admit, I could feel my stomach churning. As a child, I would have recurring dreams that I could flap my arms and fly. And then suddenly forget to flap my arms and start falling to the ground. On the right-hand side of my body, there were 2 handles. One opened the parachute, the other one got rid of the parachute. Pulling the one that got rid of the parachute obviously could have been fatal. The second I was out, I felt fantastic. I mean, I was flying. I remember looking to my right, to the instructor on my right. As I moved my hand down, he was saying no, which I couldn't quite work out why he was saying no, and I looked to the instructor on my left and he was saying yes. The instructor on my right was saying no. The instructor on my left was saying yes. And I don't know, somehow I think I got on better with the instructor on my left, so third time I pulled the lever that got rid of the parachute, not the lever that opened the parachute. One of the instructors managed to yank my spare parachute.
He really was shaken up. He felt that if he's ever in a situation like that, I may kill myself.
The only time I ever saw him scared was when he skydived and he pulled the wrong cord. When he came home that day, I just had a look at his face and I said, "What's happened?" He just looked really ill, like that white pallor in his skin. I think he would got serious fright. When I was told about the balloons, I think I was probably not very happy about that. Richard likes new things. He would just think, okay, I want to do this. Stop him? No. I might say if you do that, it was not going to make me very happy, but I would never try and stop him. Can't stop people from doing what they want to do. But I did say to him, if anything happens to you, I will not come to your funeral.
The pop music millionaire and adventurer is almost ready for his latest challenge.
It is now an early Monday evening outside the Sugarloaf Inn at the base of Sugarloaf, USA, and we are joined with Per Lindstrand and Richard Branson.
It's well known now. Well, you can't believe your little boy's going to go off in the balloon. I mean, the whole thing seemed so remotely possible. But that's Richard. We had to just accept it. My husband was terrified, but I just couldn't think that way because I think I would have quite liked to do a lot of it myself.
My mother had enormous expectations. Even before I was born, my mum had booked prime ministership for her son. I think I soon realized that if I was to satisfy her wishes for her son, that I had to do some pretty extraordinary things in my life.
What did you think when you first heard about it?
He had promised us he wouldn't do anything else crazy. And he said just one more thing, so this is the last. He mustn't do anything more now.
6,000 feet, 5,000 feet, still time.
Being dyslexic is fascinating, actually, when I think about it. I mean, I would look at an IQ test at school and I would get nothing right, nothing. There were certain things I had to be really careful of. I mean, like, I went into the balloon and, you know, there were a lot of levers. You know, I mean, I would have to, you know, like, make sure there were a big sign saying, do not pull this lever because it separates the balloon from the capsule.
Right, have I given that long enough? 10 seconds?
Yes, sir.
Number 4.
Richard likes adventure. He likes publicity. He knows how to get it. And so everything that Richard does in terms of the ballooning and the boats is calculated on, one, he wants to do it himself, personal satisfaction. B, it has to be justified by the media and by the publicity.
And there we see fuel things disappearing. Oops, hello. There we go, a bit of artistic license here.
He has great faith in other people. If he believes in someone, and he believed in Per, he has great faith in them. Misplaced in my view. I first got involved with, if you like, high technology ballooning through a project called Operation SkyQuest. Per Lindstrand and I were trying to get to the edge of space, about 80,000 feet. We spent a long time training for this flight. One of the first rules in ballooning is never let your feet get off the ground unless you're in the basket, not even an inch. And for some unaccountable reason, when we were inflating SkyQuest, Per hung on to the crown line and went up in the air. Was only about 15, 20 feet. But it damaged him quite seriously and put the project back by a year. It makes you look ridiculous. I mean, isn't it bloody obvious that you don't do that? That is what you face when you're trying to break records in balloons. The opportunity for embarrassment is always there, and it will always catch you out.
It's very easy when you start a project to think about the prize. The prize of being the first to ever fly the Atlantic on a hot air balloon was fabulous. But the risks, as you got closer and closer to it, as you saw the capsule sitting there with these massive gas tanks around it. And these were all bombs, in effect. They were full of liquid propane. So if one dropped off and split, with a hot air balloon, it would make a hell of a mess. It drove it home to me that he was risking his life and we were putting his life on the line.
Come along down, we'll tell you, we'll let you know.
It was very difficult because this wasn't the boss, this wasn't some bloke you work for, this was a mate. He's really good at keeping a smile on his face, but you can also see that this is a little scary.
His whole upbringing was to think of other people. He wasn't allowed to be angry, he wasn't to be jealous, fear wasn't allowed. All those things had to be squashed. I don't think that's a terrible thing. Do children express their feelings all the time? No, they don't. I don't think so. They keep it to themselves.
Tom Barrow was crew chief. He was good at keeping things together. He was a people man rather than a technology man. He was aware of the dangers.
One night in Maine, Tom Barrow sat me down and told me of the extreme dangers that I was going into. And he said that you do realize that 6 people have tried to fly across the Atlantic, 5 have perished, and it's not too late to back out. Tom was concerned whether Per would put himself first in a crisis situation. A slightly unsettling conversation to have the person in charge of the whole project warning me against it. And sometimes in situations like that, it's more courageous to say no than it is to say yes. But I felt that Per and I would look out for each other.
The actual launch becomes almost a series of trigger points, a bit like a NASA launch. We had a time schedule, there was an optimum time to go.
I could see the lights of the police vehicle flashing outside. I'm quite good with lists, so I went through my list to make sure that I had everything that I needed. Went through all the gear again, made sure I put the parachute on right. Per and I went out into the car.
On the site in 1 hour. Over.
I remember thinking, this just feels like a flight that's about to go to space.
Explosive boats and cutters are now connected. All people stay behind the barricades.
We came around the corner and there was this magnificent balloon, just gigantic.
That is the moment. The first time you see the balloon. I was a bit nervous, would the crew been able to inflate it without damaging it? And there it was, looking absolutely gorgeous.
Did you copy?
Yeah, we copy.
Leave the vehicles where they are and come into the capsule.
When you jump.
You see that, you're going to feel one away, can you? Isn't that a beautiful sight?
What do you think of it, Richard?
I'm just trying to look out there. It looks good.
I can't see the top.
Are you a little bit nervous?
Well, of course I'm a bit nervous.
This is your crowning moment. This is your day of success.
We were allowed to be the last to say goodbye to him. I still had optimistic thoughts. My husband, tears were streaming down his face. It was no good me showing worries because I've been bringing him up all his life not to show his fear.
We fired the exploding bolts and there was no going back. I heard what sounded like an enormous crash. It was impossible to tell straight away what had gone wrong.
Yeah, he didn't know he'd lost the tank, and he doesn't know he's got sandbags.
Tom to Per, over.
Tom, go ahead.
Per, you have left behind on the field fuel tank number 4.
To lose a ton of the fuel before embarking on the flight, yes, the balloon was going to be lighter, but it meant that we were going to be a ton less fuel than we'd actually planned for. Not a great start.
They barely left the ground, but too late, they'd gone. All my thoughts were chase after him, get there for his landing, wherever that is.
At 10,000 feet, Per put the door back in. To our great relief, the capsule pressurized, and we prepared ourselves for entry into the jet stream. Per was absolutely convinced that the balloon would be strong enough to withstand the sort of 100-mile-an-hour winds. We kept our parachutes on, and we headed up tentatively to about 25,000, 30,000 feet. Suddenly, the top of the balloon took off and started flying at 80, 90, 100 miles an hour.
It's like somebody had taken the top of the balloon and dragged it along.
We just were screaming along, half in and half out of the jet stream. And then, suddenly, the whole capsule went into the jet stream. The shuddering stopped. The top of the balloon and the bottom of the balloon were going at 100 miles an hour each. And it was magnificent. It's remarkable. You can't tell what speed you're going. Whether you're going 10 miles an hour or 1,000 miles an hour, it's beautifully serene. And as long as nothing interrupts that serenity, there's nothing more magical.
Beginning of a great adventure, and Per's like a grown-up schoolboy. His incredible invention has done so well.
Now you're invincible. All the odds are now stacked in favor of you.
The next landing place, hopefully, is Great Britain. And there's a lot of water in between.
Well, here at British Telecom, the London Control Centre, the tension and excitement have been mounting all morning. We know that the balloonists have now cleared the coast of Nova Scotia. They've got 2,500 miles of ocean in front of them. Robin, you're looking very excited here. What's going on?
Well, it's exactly 6:22, and the Virgin Atlantic Flyer has just broken the world distance record for hot air balloons.
Well, that's wonderful. And
I agreed to report upon the progress to various TV stations and radio stations.
But they've made a cracking start.
You know, we wanted people to recognise that this was an extraordinary adventure and all British.
How are you both feeling, Owen?
We're both feeling magnificent, and it's absolutely beautiful up here. We're going at tremendous speed. We're going about 100 knots.
The big question, are you going to make it, both of you? Over.
I think it's going to be difficult to say until tomorrow morning when we can see just how much we've suffered from losing the fuel. We think that if we can keep up this sort of speed and this sort of trajectory, that we have a good chance. But I think we'd rather you ask us this question tomorrow.
At this stage in the trip, it looked pretty hopeful that we were going to be the first people to cross the Atlantic in a hot air balloon. And then to see the Virgin plane, one of only two planes that we had, flying around us, it was a tremendous feeling.
I see 747 doing 400 knots around you. That was a magic moment. I think for Richard that particular was a moment because it was his 747 and it was his 747 fleet that had financed the balloon crossing.
I looked out and there was the balloon bouncing around below me, and that was Richard. I couldn't think what to say, so I said, "Go on, Richard, faster, faster, I'll race you." Because anything to take your mind off seeing our little baby doing these awful things. We were always with him. For some reason, he seemed to need my husband and me to be there, and we always were there.
The next morning, as the sun starts to come up, the balloon just decides on its own to start rising and rising.
I hope we get some cloud cover over it, otherwise we're going to be in trouble again.
It was carrying many tons of weight at the bottom, and here it was going up with no fuel being put in it at all. Having to deal with the look on Per's face. He knew that if it went up to 40,000 feet, everything would implode. It wasn't stopping rising.
Climbing or steady? Sorry? Is it steady or climbing?
A moment ago, life felt fantastic, and now it looked like it was. It wasn't. We were potentially coming to an end. The only thing that was going to stop it is if we could create a vent at the top of the balloon. And it was only just after about 40 minutes that Per realised that the rope was still slack. Per had his head in his hands. He had one hand pressing the button to try to open the valve at the top of the balloon. As it got closer to 40,000 feet, it was getting closer to midday, and that's when the sun's hottest. We gave it one final press, and the rope came fully taut and opened the vent at the top. And it started coming down.
Right, Per, I want to know why you just put me through the fright of my life.
this balloon is that it's still bloody good. And the solar, I said it could fly solar power, and it did. But I didn't expect it to do it so soon.
Well, the great adventure will all be over in about 2 hours' time. But the hard part starts now, the landing. Robin, you taught Richard how to fly this thing.
Yes.
What will be going through his mind now with Per?
Well, they are completely concentrating on the landing. They've been, if you like, cruising at 27,000 feet for 32 hours. Now they're learning to fly it. They're actually writing the flight manual as they go.
We were making it up as we went along.
How many miles to go?
I would say about 70 before she crosses the Scottish coast.
Is the champagne on ice?
It is, yes, it is.
We come across the Atlantic. First landfall will be Ireland. At which time we get the weather report saying that Glasgow, which was our intended site, was in fog.
Suddenly we just saw an enormous amount of swirling clouds below us. That's something you do not want in a big balloon. Because the wind had got up, we realized that landing in Scotland, and it was going to be getting dark by then, was very risky with 3 tons of fuel on board. So we decided to come down over Northern Ireland and drop the fuel on a field and then to land in the sea. We came through the clouds. A massive downdraft just took the balloon. Per immediately realized the danger and was just pumping enormous flumes of hot air in just to try to stop us hitting the ground. But the balloon's going to have none of it.
It was real scary. There was a pile of bricks there, and the fuel tank hit the bricks and were torn off.
The balloon twisted and twisted and twisted.
Tanks flying everywhere, bits flying everywhere, cables tearing off. And before I can release the envelope, the balloon is up again.
We bounced over this house. We took off over some high-power cable lines. My feeling at this stage was we were completely and utterly out of control, and that we should set off the emergency beacon. Per didn't want to set off the emergency beacon. He was a balloon builder. I think the last thing he wanted anyone to know was that there'd been a catastrophic accident. But as far as I was concerned, we were flying in a vehicle that was out of control, and I felt we needed help.
I'll do that straight away. Thank you very much.
They bounced in Ireland. They were heading towards the Irish Sea. It was raining, it was low cloud. I couldn't see how they could safely land the balloon.
We've decided let's try to land right by the edge of the beach, just off Ireland. We overshot the beach, and we must have overshot it by a mile or 2.
We are fully concentrating on landing on the water, cutting explosive bolts, and then inflating the collar around the capsule to make it stable in the water so it will roll.
Scottish Golf, Bravo Mike Alpha Lima. 76. Roger, that's a copy.
Per threw the explosive bolt to get rid of the balloon.
I fired explosive bolts, nothing happens.
It didn't work.
At that point, everything went blank.
Water was splashing in through the top of the capsule. Per just screamed, "Get out, get out, get out." I saw his ass disappearing through the top of the capsule. I scrambled after him.
Richard had his parachute on, he had a lifeboat on, his survival pack, so he was very clumsy.
The next moment, he threw himself off the top of the capsule into the water.
By the time I turned around in the water, Richard's at the railing. And now the capsule had started to come up again.
Just lift it off again, Phil.
The balloon soared upwards.
Okay, so no chance of seeing him then.
I was standing right on the top of the capsule, looking down at the water. I thought that Per had died because I felt that he'd thrown himself from the balloon at maybe 100 feet.
This is G Heli. They have attempted to land in the water. Their flotation bags have blown off and are no longer inflated.
So I'm in the water, wearing just nothing but an overall. Richard has the survival kit, the lifeboat, the life jacket, and everything on him, and is in the capsule.
We're going to go up with them, IMC, above the cloud. Do not let any aircraft beneath it. We suspect they are about to do a parachute jump.
That was probably the worst moment in my entire life, to see Richard alone in the world's biggest balloon disappearing in the clouds.
The balloon touched down on the water, just north of the Irish coast, that it then went up to 1,000 feet, that the crew have been seen inside and they're perfectly okay.
You mean they've missed? They haven't made it then? They failed to make it as a transatlantic flight because they hit the water?
I think I'll really pass on that one, but as far as I'm concerned, they've actually passed Ireland.
But you were telling me earlier if they didn't land in fresh water or land, they didn't make it.
That's quite possible.
We were desperately trying to find out what had happened, because we were ringing, we'd heard that it was somewhere in the sea, and I got through to the head honcho of the Royal Naval Station. He could report that both pilots had jumped out of the balloon and they parachuted into the sea. I didn't doubt him for one moment, so this is what I reported to television cameras.
We've just heard in the last couple of minutes that they have parachuted out of the balloon somewhere above the Mull of Kintyre.
I'm a balloonist. I can't think of an immediate reason why.
I really don't have a whole lot of information for you. I'll give you what I have. No further information is allowed.
We didn't really have enough information.
Military rescue helicopters have been some.
There was a huge amount of misinformation. Both crew are in the water. One is swimming for shore. They've parachuted out. The balloon has taken off. So many bits of information, we didn't know what the truth was.
I was at the control tower in London when the flight was nearing the end. It was shambolic.
Could you stay out of the control area?
No one knew how to handle the media, because suddenly the story was, we should all stand by for some bad news.
An historic hot air balloon voyage has ended in confusion. British millionaire Richard Branson and his Swedish co-pilot Per Lindstrand were just a few miles from Scotland at the end of their transatlantic crossing. But just a few minutes ago, the two bailed out over the Irish Sea.
You simply don't know what the hell's happening. It isn't a position you want to be in as a part of the team when your two prime guys have gone missing.
The big question is why this happened. There was apparently no advance notice given by the two men, and officials here are absolutely puzzled. They say there's no logical reason why they should have jumped out.
The probability is that these two guys have killed themselves. Really difficult. And the truth is very close to that.
I looked down at the swirling clouds below. I realized that, this is almost definitely the last sort of 5 or 10 minutes of my life. Climbed back into the capsule. I'm just thinking, desperately trying to think, is there another way out? Very lonely, as lonely as I ever felt in all my life. I wrote a note to Holly, Sam and Joan, telling them how much I loved them. And then climbed back onto the top of the capsule again. I looked at my parachute and tried to make sure that, when I jumped, I pulled the cord that opened the parachute and got rid of the parachute. And bizarrely, it's only dyslexic which will understand this. My brain was saying, are you sure you've got it right? Are you sure you've got it right? Mum and Dad always brought us up wanting us to stand on our own 2 feet. We weren't allowed to watch television. We had to be out there doing things. They would put us on a bicycle and make us, aged 7 or 8, ride 60 miles to the seaside. I remember my mum pushing me out of the car, aged 6, and about 4 miles from my grandmother's house in Devon, telling me to make my own way there. Many, many years later, I'm standing on top of a balloon, and I was equally desperate to find my way home. And I looked out, and suddenly I just thought, fuck it, I've got the biggest parachute in the world right above me. What on earth am I doing thinking of parachuting? I use the balloon as the parachute.
By this time, I was having 3 helicopters going past me. I was waving frantically that they didn't see me. 1 lifeboat coming right past 100 yards, looking dead ahead, didn't see me either. The land was only about 3 kilometers. I started swimming, and I got nowhere. And then I realized the tide was going out. The tide had the same speed as I was swimming. So after an hour of swimming, I'm still exactly in the same spot. Now it's getting serious. I started to feel that sense of heating of the body, which is the last thing you do when you freeze to death. I probably only had about another 15 minutes to go.
I burned in small bursts and vent a little bit of air out the top. I came back down through the clouds. I suddenly see a helicopter close by.
Well, visual of the balloon is below clouds. Looks like the balloon pitching in about 30 seconds.
About 100 foot from the sea, I get one more burst of hot air. Put my life vest on, climbed back on top of the balloon. Stood by the railings, and as the balloon started to plummet towards the sea, I threw myself off the side of the railings.
He's in.
As I hit that water, I fire opened the life vest, I popped back out. It was one of the best feelings of my life. I mean, I remember that feeling of getting away from that monster.
There's a body in the water. A body in the water. Just one? Just one, by there. He's kicking his feet. I think he's okay.
And I remember that wonderful feeling of these hands hauling me into the helicopter.
This is Warship Argonaut. Roger, you're loud and clear. I have one person on board recovered from the balloon, Mr. Richard Branson. Apparently there is one further person in the water. Over.
You say passenger in the water? The other passengers in the water.
I could overhear their conversations, and finding somebody as it was getting dark in the Irish Sea was almost impossible.
This is Argonaut. I'm proceeding to a position where I believe the balloon first hit the water. That is where the first person left the balloon, according to Mr. Branson. Over.
Eventually, I hear a helicopter coming straight towards me. So I think, thank God for that. But instead of actually seeing the cable coming down with the harness, he starts circling me. I think, what's that idiot doing?
The rope that the helicopter pulled me up with had completely tangled by then, so they couldn't actually heave him up. And they managed to get a fishing boat to get to him.
By the time I had taken my overall off, I had just my underpants on. The girl lent me her yellow sweater that sort of came here and came here.
We were united on the boat, gave each other the biggest hug ever.
Richard says to me, "Did you go in the water?" I said, "Yes." "So did I, Richard. It was freezing, wasn't it?" I said to Richard, "How long were you in there for?" I said, 2 minutes. "How long were you in there?" I said, 2 hours. Nah, I said, it's not possible.
Just before we open the bottles, we've got one very important announcement to make, and that's that in a large field in Northern Ireland, there's an extremely large plough mark made by the gondola of the balloon where it touched down before it went into the water.
Yeah, right.
So any doubt about a world record is gone. They touch the ground.
A lot of people do think that Per acted incorrectly.
He threw himself over the back. Did he parachute? No, he jumped.
It's a bit like a captain making sure everyone's off safe and being the last man off. And that's what should have happened.
He panicked somewhat. He made a bad decision. But I certainly don't blame him for what he did.
The Atlantic was a pioneering flight. They got away with it.
That was pretty horrific. Naturally, I thought, that's it, I hope. That's it.
Are you going to try and talk him into not doing this?
Okay, no, stop. Never, he's promised he'll never do anything ever again.
He said that before.
And probably at that moment it made me happy that I thought he was never going to do it again. But I suppose deep down I didn't believe him anyway.
I sort of felt like I was now a balloonist. And I think that when Per suggested that maybe we should try the Pacific, I couldn't have imagined going with anybody else. I'm just this sort of person who can't resist a challenge. Did I go searching for it? I think both Per and I went searching for each other, and we both wanted to do it.
Never one to do things by halves or out of the media spotlight, Richard Branson's latest adventure will have him and companion Per Lindstrand drifting 6,000 miles across the northern Pacific from Japan to California.
You told your mother last time, I'll never do it again, Mum.
Did I?
Come on.
Well, it's true, and for about a month, I actually meant it.
It's not a coincidence that we chose to fly the balloon across the Pacific and do it from Japan, because we were building the business there. We were opening mega stores in Japan, the airline started flying to Japan in 1989, and we were looking at Japanese investment in Virgin Atlantic as well at exactly this moment in time.
Virgin were getting big and bigger, and I believe that he was driven to get into this project by the PR machine.
He has got a very good selective memory sometimes, Richard. He'd put all that fear behind him and just carry on like it didn't happen.
The Pacific is a unique flight. In the Atlantic, you go down, you have to wait within 6 to 8 hours and there will be a ship. You go down in the Pacific, you have to wait for 2 to 3 days before you get picked up.
That kind of failure, more than 7 or 8 hours out of the flight, it would not be possible to save their lives.
Richard had a lot of different things going on his plate all at one time. You've got the mortality factor. Richard's got 2 children. They're there with him on the site. He's thinking about them.
It was a very nerve-wracking time. I remember a plane arriving with a whole bunch of lawyers to sign a will, and you'd have weather delay after weather delay after weather delay. After 3 weeks of that, you begin to take a bit more risk.
The reason we chose southern Japan was because the jet stream takes off from southern China and goes over Japan and right over to the United States. That is the ideal spot that evening. I was plotting the pressures, and the high pressure area was still building in. It still hadn't crusted over us yet. We laid everything out in hopes that it would calm down, but I mean, you could watch the fabric fluttering across the field as the wind rustled through it that night. It was just not good.
Is it worth the risk? Is it worth the risk of one's children losing a father? Is it worth the risk of one's wife losing a husband? Is it worth the risk of my parents losing a son? All these kinds of questions were racing through my head. it would be my dad that I would find an excuse to ring up. He was always a wonderful listener. He was also the sort of person who would never tell me no. My mum and dad always encouraged us to say yes to pretty well everything in life. I think perhaps the only occasion where he tried to stop me doing something was with the Pacific crossing. And yeah, he told me it was selfish. In the end, for good or for bad, I decided to give him a ring and tell him I decided to press on with it. Thousands and thousands of Japanese children and families came out to watch it take off. I was watching it with my dad, and as the balloon lifted off, bits of the balloon started peeling off. It didn't look good. When I talked to Per, he indicated that this wasn't the integral parts of the balloon. He assured me that we could still get across the Pacific with the missing panels. I remember talking to my dad. He very quickly said, "It looks very integral to me."
At the moment it was inflated, there were definitely more tension. There were doubts in not just our minds, but Thunder and Colt's mind as well. That was a worry, because up until that point we'd always had tremendous confidence in their ability.
A lot of crap coming out.
The stuff dangling off the sides, it didn't look pretty. But as long as the integrity of the balloon was still there, the weather is still good. It's up to you. And then I just backed off.
Just standing there looking up at the balloon as pieces started flaking off just didn't feel right.
Suddenly, a giant amount of the balloon started collapsing onto the burners. The team threw themselves into putting the fire out, saving the capsule, saving the fuel, and saving all the people around them. It was obvious that this balloon was going to go nowhere.
He is very image conscious, and when something as unpredictable and as uncontrollable as ballooning, when he has to deal with something like that, he does get frustrated. and he feels the pressure on his image to succeed.
What was that? No, we're going to be the laughing stock, really. I mean, all day long in England, everyone's flown in. Stupid. Oh, fuck. I can't bear it. This is embarrassing. I can't bear it.
Well, I mean, it's a situation of the launch site.
The balloon froze to the ground sheet. The balloon was decided taken out of this box, instantly inflated. And it froze to the ground sheet, so when it inflated, it peeled off, delaminated the outer skin, and the outer skin is what keeps the air in there. Structurally, she's okay. She's strong enough to go across the Atlantic or Pacific, whatever you want, but because of the air holes, and you can see the flapping, we will take half our fuel away.
still brings tears to my eyes when I see that. You know, I can still see that in my head. It was just the perfect night, and the jet stream was still perfect, you know, overhead, and everything would have been fine. But when the fabric failed, it just...
You could just tell he was angry. He didn't want to hear the reasons as to what was to blame, because that's what you pay for when you're doing something. You pay for the planning.
We will be back. I promise you that we will be back, and hopefully next time we'll have better luck.
To be in the office when Per came back was a nightmare. Anybody who spoke to him got sacked. We didn't have an office of very many people, but I think that 90% were sacked within 3 days of his return. Things calmed down, they all came back again. But, you know, that's a sign that you've gone beyond the stress limit. I think even if the flight had been a success, he would have been beyond the stress limit. But this just made it that much worse.
He was never allowed to run anybody down in front of me anyhow. Even now, I never hear him run anybody down. What he quietly thinks is something quite different.
Richard is pretty good as a person at not blaming individuals, but he certainly blamed process.
I mean, I've been with Richard a long, long time. I understand what kind of person he is. He understands what kind of person I am. We're both very different in lots of areas, but fundamentally we're probably the same.
Joan has always been an absolute rock through all these adventures. I know how foolish she thinks I've been on occasions, and you know, somehow I don't know, for some reason or other, she's loved me, you know, throughout. The least I could do was to show how much I loved her by getting married at the time.
We had a lovely wedding. It was a perfect day. Holly was 8, Sam was 4. I didn't have to say to people, I'm Richard's girlfriend anymore. I could say, I'm his wife.
I'd left school at 15. I'd completely failed at school in the conventional schooling sense. And I had a lot to prove, and I suppose I've spent quite a lot of my life trying to prove things to myself, you know, prove things to my family, prove things to my friends. Per and I had been through a lot. We both got lots of faults, but somehow we were bonded for life as far as ballooning was concerned. If Per had given up on me, you know, like, who's this idiot who's going and pulled the wrong cord and got rid of the parachute early on, you know, he could have done. You know, I could have given up on him on occasions. It's too simple, I think, just to separate over things that go wrong. Things that go wrong hopefully can bind you closer together rather than separate you.
Richard is forward all the time. No backwards. I fixed the problem. I changed the launch site, improved the quality of the balloon, and I was fully confident we were in a good position to do it. I was full of beans at the time.
Virgin management realised that they were dependent on the manufacturers and the Lindstrand crew. They were beginning to question whether they should have someone with a better understanding of ballooning to manage the project. At the time, I was working with Richard in launching a balloon and airship company. Richard asked me to get involved with the project and take an overview on it.
Mike says it how he believes it to be. It's not my particular approach, but it was good to have him around.
The guy is a complete selfish prick. He served to cause a divide between Virgin and my group.
There was much more friction. Virgin were pushy, more demanding, more keen to enforce the contract and make sure that Thunder and Colt were complying. There was a lot of business tension in there that we hadn't seen before the Atlantic.
If something like this happens,
I was probably disliked intensely by the Lindstrand crew. But that's the only way we were going to move forward.
Because of the involvement of Richard as chairman of an airline, it's very important that we stay within the confines of this plan. Now, what we will do if an emergency is declared, this is any kind of an emergency at all, we will all know that by the introduction of a code word which must absolutely stay within this room. We don't want to write it down, it's easy to remember. And the code name is Spanner. So if we hear at all we're into Operation Spanner, then we are into an emergency situation that is outside of our control.
I thought failure was way up above 90%. And that was the scary part.
On the 12th of January, we were walking through an airport and I looked up at a TV screen. I could see this body being winched out of the sea and realized that a Japanese balloonist who tried to beat us to the punch and take off a couple of days before us had perished. It was an absolutely sickening feeling. And you do think this could have been me.
It was pretty shattering, really. We thought, well, perhaps now he won't do it.
It does make you worry that, oh, somebody's done it, they haven't succeeded.
It cast a pall over myself, my parents, and I think all the other people who gathered to fly.
Should we take off in what was basically a publicity-driven adventure? We had responsibilities to other people.
President Saddam Hussein of Iraq has said that any last-minute initiative to avoid war in the Gulf...
We knew the Gulf War was likely to take place within a day or two of us taking off. I mean, it was becoming very, very, very apparent that the decision was about to be made to invade. But we had a weather window, and we weren't going to wait for a war, and we decided, we had the weather window, we had to go.
When I got to that field that night, I said through Akemi, she was my interpreter, "Kikyu Taiheo." Tonight we fly.
You get bound up in it. And it doesn't matter about self-publicity, promotion of the company, thirst for adventure. That all gets washed away eventually into, we've just got to do this.
That was probably the most amazing takeoff we ever done. That was the best.
Probably one of the happiest moments of my life, it really was. I just remember staring straight up, watching those flames go until it went out of sight. I don't think I took my eyes off of it. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
It is a great relief to be airborne. Now, all the little problems you've had, all the different relations, they're all gone, because all you're thinking about now is flying.
It was all experimental. We were test pilots. We were testing craft that could only be tested by actually getting up there and flying.
Well, we've got our first problem, and that is we've got radio problem. PA doesn't seem to be able to pick up anybody on its radio. There's an enormous amount of interference.
quite a struggle keeping the balloon at one level at the moment. And as you can see from the flames, they're not very strong or consistent. The wind's blowing them all over the place. Pacific Fly, we've lost all flames. The balloon is descending at a reasonably fast speed.
Per was searching frantically to work out what was wrong, and then suddenly realized that the fuel tank had actually emptied much quicker than he'd thought.
No, you've got a flame there. You've got a flame. You've got a flame, sure. Yeah, you've got a flame back. Just come back. Push. I thought we weren't going to have any frights this bloody trip. What's happening?
Could you confirm whether you have dropped tank 4, over?
Negative. But one thing we do know is it's empty.
Could you let us know when you do drop it, over?
We certainly will. War has broken out, did you say, over?
Richard was quite fixated about the war.
What happened, over?
I couldn't get done.
Who attacked who, over?
The Americans attacked Baghdad.
Right, we're going to release a tank and try to drop it away into the sea. And if we're lucky, we might see it plummeting into the sea. I'm not sure whether our cameras can pick up, but there's extremely rough seas down there. But very, very nasty seas indeed. Something dangling down here, Ben, you said? Is that all right?
Sorry?
That's okay, is it? Whatever that's dangling down there?
I don't know.
You see?
No.
What?
I can't.
We're at one hell of an angle. I can't remember it being like this last time.
No.
Well, this isn't much fun, suddenly. Fuck, we really are on an angle, aren't we?
Yeah.
It almost makes you feel it. You're going to go over it if you...
Yes, confirmed. That's correct, over.
I put my head up in the glass dome on the top, and I saw that tank is the empty one. That's gone. And that's gone. And that's gone. And I thought, shit, we had lost a half our fuel supply about 10 hours into the flight.
Telephone number. Use the telephone number that Richard has an old telephone number. So if you cannot get through on that number, use the original telephone number. Over.
What?
Simon, it's Per here. We have a wiring fault in the system, and I activate the number 4. We lost 3 tanks. I say again, 3 tanks.
I reran the last 30 seconds of footage.
This is Pacific Flyer. I think we're in serious trouble.
His voice was shaking. We were in Operation Spanner. Our first reaction was to check on all the assets that were about in the sea and where the ships were. The priority is now to get them down in a controlled manner, as safely as possible, near some ships. The other thing that we've got to try and do is get them down in daylight. There were 3 or 4 ships, but days away from steaming to them. So the possibility of picking them up, well, there was no possibility of picking them up in a time frame which they could survive. We were definitely looking at a situation where we might lose them.
Half your fuel gone after 30% of the distance. You are basically, in theory, doomed.
Do we have any chance?
What's the chance? Look like swimming on the way.
Oh, fuck.
Richard is an optimist. He always thinks things are going to work out well.
Per's a realist, and when he says there's always a chance, you know, I know he means there's no fucking chance.
We've done our calculation from our man back at home, and he says that instead of having 70 hours duration of fuel left, we've got, or sorry, instead of having 80 hours of duration of fuel left, we've got about now 35. And people back at base are trying to work out whether we have any chance of reaching the Pacific coast. So we have a few headaches ahead. It might seem ridiculous me carrying on filming at this point, but there's not much else that we can do, and in some ways it's quite therapeutic. Anyway, people back home will do some calculations, and we will cross fingers and hope that we can get as close to the California coast as possible.
We were fearing the worst when suddenly all communication stopped.
Pacific Flyer, Pacific Flyer, Pacific Flyer. This is Thunder Base. This is Thunder Base, over.
Everything had gone dead. It was a horrible period, a terrible period. And it went on for hours.
Is that Honolulu? Keep them on the line until blast.
We had no way of communicating to the outside world, so it was a very, very lonely time.
I thought there was a strong possibility of them being dead. How do you tell someone that they lost their father and their husband? How do you do that?
A spokesman for Mr. Branson's Virgin Atlantic said his balloon's now expected to crash within the next 24 hours.
Trevor Abbott, at the time that worked at Virgin, he came round to Holland Park and said, you know, we've lost contact with the balloon. I think you're kind of just dazed. I think when anybody tells you something bad like that, it does take a while to sink in.
Unlike the Atlantic, where the horror story was all encapsulated within about 1 hour, this was a long, drawn-out fear. When it's going well, it's breathtakingly beautiful. The spectacular views you get when you stand up and look out at the dome. When it's going wrong, it feels like the sides of the capsule are closing in on you, and it's a pretty dreadful place to be. We were as far from land as anybody is anywhere in the world. And we were in a balloon, and we were in trouble.
I'm too tired.
I think he knew that he was facing death, completely mentally overwhelmed, and he collapsed somewhat. And it was then that I suggested to him that he should have a rest. And I took over the flying of the balloon for many hours. The only chance we had was to get right into the core of the jet stream and give it the best chance of getting the speeds that we would need to get across the Pacific. He was flying right in the jet stream. And remarkably, just started seeing the speed going up and up and up. 170, 180, 190, 200, almost unheard of. In fact, it was unheard of. And it was as if some friendly force up there was just picking our balloon up and just pushing us along. I'd been awake for a long time and just closed the eyes for a few moments. I could see flashes of skeletons, bodies, and 1,000 horses pulling the envelope along and ripping it to pieces. Just these horrible flashes going on. The brain was desperately wanting to go to sleep, and the body was desperately wanting to go to sleep, but there was no way I was going to let it happen. And suddenly I saw what looked like chunks of flame falling all around the top of the dome. And for a second I thought, I'm beginning to hallucinate out of tiredness. And then I realized, Christ, we're on fire. Per immediately sprang out of whatever was going on in his head.
The radio suddenly came on. I heard a fire, a fire, a fire. That's all you can hear.
You could see these lumps of burning snowballs falling around the dome. One lump of that propane hitting the dome, which was at -60 degrees, would have exploded it.
A fire on board a capsule, oxygen-rich environment, is, a death sentence.
The only way you can kill that fire is by climbing high enough to stop it burning.
Per was fantastic. He knew exactly what to do. He just shouted, burn, burn, burn.
Okay, started this at 5, right up.
We got up to 40,000 feet, 41,000 feet.
Of course, we all waited.
The capsule was only certified for 42,000 feet. We had to go higher.
Stop. 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 Don't do anything. Fire is out.
About 43,500 feet. We were still in one piece, and the fire stopped.
Not a happy moment.
When I actually spoke to Richard, I said, Richard, where the fuck are you? And he said, I'm over the Pacific in a tin can, get me out of here.
Another miracle was the fact that the radio had come on just in time to tell us to drop 20,000 feet and catch another jet stream going up north. If the radio had come on 2 hours later, we would have been back heading towards Japan again and facing definite death. So we were very fortunate.
Right, you want good news? Yeah. Okay, this is all theory, right? Right. Our distance to Vancouver is 2,857 nautical miles. We have 1,500 kilos of fuel left estimated, divided by 50, so 30 hours of fuel. If we do an average 100 knots, it's 3,000 miles we're going to make Vancouver. If we got that amount of fuel. Dream with the chance.
That was the turning point. We made landfall at Juneau, Alaska. The wonderful feeling we could land on the other side of the Rockies.
It was dark, and we were about to cross the most inhospitable mountain range in America, and I've never felt so exhilarated in my life. But you can't land in the mountains, definitely, and you can't land in the dark. Oh, you 100% can't land in the dark.
They've just made it past us to put our emergency beacon on, which we've done, and coming near to the end of the journey. It's very difficult to land a balloon in, but we've been told that if we can get down at 500 foot a minute, that we have a chance of landing in some reasonable weather. And we're hoping to come down on quite wide open tundra plains.
We started coming down the other side of the Rockies, and we came down to 10,000 feet. Per asked me to go up on the roof to get the safety catches off the explosive bolt. I climb up onto the top and then move very, very slowly around the top of the capsule, pulling one safety catch after the other safety catch and handing them back to Per.
I count them, and there's a little spike I hang them on the count them twice to make sure they're all off.
Looked ahead and saw millions of acres of trees, and then suddenly saw a lake coming up ahead.
He climbs back in again, and I aim for that lake.
And this is where Per's lifetime of skills of being one of the greatest balloonists, if not the greatest balloonist alive, came into being. Throw myself back in the seat, buckle up, and brace myself for the landing. The explosive bolts worked. We ground to a halt. The balloon disappeared from the capsule and landed in some nearby trees.
This is half an hour or so after the event, and we're sitting somewhere in the tundra. We set off various emergency beacons and tried to get in touch with people to say that we're okay.
Actually, the landing was positive, firm, decisive, accurate, memorable, intense, and there aren't many people who have landed the world's biggest balloon and could laugh about it 30 seconds later.
We'd crossed the Pacific. We were the first to do so, but most important of all, yeah, we were alive.
There was no one with any experience on the project because there was no one in the world with any experience. Look at the landing. He's got the world's biggest balloon. He lands it at about 1,200 feet a minute, which is a bit of a smack, but Per is a brilliant person to do that. He really is.
We broke all kinds of records. I mean, the records are there for the public to look at, and we had very little coverage whatsoever. The whole world was focused on Iraq and Kuwait, and we were just some little side note, at the bottom of the newscast. And it was just a shame to have such a monumental event go for naught, and I'm sure Richard was deeply disappointed by that.
Obviously, if we're going to do a great adventure, we'd like to get the brand on the map. But when you're facing death, you realize that these things are not that important. In fact, not important at all.
You want to become famous for being an explorer, you have to take the risk. That's part of the game. And Richard was prepared to take that risk.
There is a danger that by having that positive attitude to life, that at some stage it could go horribly wrong. But life is short anyway, and I think if I don't end up dying in my bed, but I end up dying on one of those adventures, I think I would have lived a much fuller life for it.
As Napoleon said when he recruited Field Marshal, never mind your background, your experience, but are you lucky? And if you want to describe Richard, he is lucky.